Hello everyone, welcome to our video on elements, compounds, and mixtures, and then we'll also talk about solutions towards the end. So there are two ways that we mostly classify matter. We talk about its physical state, if it's a solid, liquid, or gas, and its composition, if it's an element, a compound, or a mixture. So we have three examples on our screen here. The first one, it is a liquid and water. Water is a compound, which we'll talk more about later. The second one, the physical state is solid, and that is iron. Iron is an element on the periodic table. And the last one, it is obviously a solid, and it is a mixture. We would assume a mixture of compounds. Now, an element contains only one type of atom. That atom would be represented on the periodic table. It cannot be broken down further and keep its identity. If we break down an atom, it is no longer that thing. And it can either exist as atoms or molecules. Sometimes atoms get lonely and they're highly reactive, so they'll commonly stick to itself. So actually the oxygen that we breathe is actually O2. It's two oxygen molecules, or two oxygen atoms hanging out together as a molecule. Compounds contain two or more atoms of different elements. Elements are bonded and they cannot be separated except with a chemical reaction. You can't just run some water or heat it a little bit unless a chemical reaction happens. A physical change can't separate a bonded compound, okay? And they're always in a specific ratio. So like I was saying with the water is always H2O. There are two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom. If there's anything else besides two hydrogens and one oxygen, it is not water. One of the biggest things about compounds is that they have different properties than the elements that make it up. I know I've talked about this a million times in class, but salt is NaCl. Sodium is a metal, and it's highly reactive with water. It'll explode if it comes in contact with water. Chlorine is a gas, and it's very toxic. You don't want to breathe it in. However, they react, and now it's table salt. It's harmless. We eat it all the time. But the properties are very, very different because they were bonded together. And a mixture is two or more substances that are not bonded together. They can be elements or compounds that are mixed, and they can be separated without a chemical reaction. You can do something like any of the techniques talked about in the mixture separation techniques video. So if you haven't watched that, go ahead and watch that to get some more info. Overall, mixtures keep most of the same properties. Sometimes if you mix some stuff, maybe a state change will happen, but overall, the majority of the characteristics are the same. Now, a solution is a specific type of mixture. It's a homogeneous mixture that is composed of a solute and a solvent. A solute is the solid that dissolves, and the solvent is the liquid that the solute dissolves in. So, for example, salt and water, the solute would be salt, and the solvent would be water. This can also be a number of things, sugar and water, anything else. There's some alcohols that sometimes will be the solvent, but the solute is the solid and the solvent is the liquid. So it's really just a special case of a homogeneous mixture. So just to kind of summarize the difference between element, compound, and mixture, elements are made up of a single atom or a single type of atom, sometimes bonded together to make a molecule. A compound is at least two bonded atoms that are different. And a mixture can have elements and or compounds, so it really can depend. Mixtures are a very, 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 very wide range of possibilities. An element is sometimes bonded. They're often found by themselves, but if they're bonded, they're only bonded to themselves, so an oxygen to an oxygen, a hydrogen to a hydrogen. A compound is always bonded. If something is not bonded, it is not a compound. And a mixture is not necessarily bonded, but can contain some stuff that is bonded together. Does it have a specific ratio? An element, if it's bonded to itself, will typically be in a specific ratio. O2 and O3 are actually two different things. O2 is the oxygen that we breathe, and O3 is ozone, which you might have heard of the ozone layer of the Earth. They do have some different properties. A compound is always in a specific ratio. Remember, H2O, it's not H2, and 1O, it's not the same thing. And a mixture does not have a specific ratio. So example, making trail mix, you might add a cup of nuts and a cup of M&Ms, a cup of raisins, or you could do 1 cup of nuts, 2 cups of M&Ms, because of course they're the best part, and a half cup of raisins because they stink. So the ratio is not specific for a mixture. It can be really very wildly different. Are there property changes? An element? No, there's really not unless it's bonded to make a molecule. Then there are some property changes. A compound? Yes, there are definite property changes. And a mixture? Mostly no, except for a few small things occasionally, such as color or state of matter. All right, everyone, that takes care of that. Have a wonderful day.